Robert Miller was known for his real estate empire and his obsession with control. That morning, as he drove his Porsche through the streets of Manhattan, an unexpected call made him change course. Mr. Miller, the investor, cancelled the meeting. Robert's blood boiled. Nobody cancelled on him. Irritated, he decided to go home early, something he rarely did. What he didn't know was that this return would change his life forever. As he parked in the garage of his Upper East Side townhouse, Robert noticed a different kind of silence. Normally, his housekeeper would greet him at the door, but today, no one was there. He walked through the marble hallways, hearing only the echo of his own footsteps, until the soft sound of laughter caught his attention. Laughter coming from the kitchen, a place he barely frequented in his own home. Robert stopped at the doorway, frozen by the scene his eyes captured. There, sitting at the simple staff table, was Alice, his 8-year-old daughter with Down syndrome, laughing like he had never seen before. And next to her, sharing a simple plate of rice, beans, and a small salad, was Daniela Garcia, the new cleaner hired just 2 weeks ago. "Now open wide, princess. Here comes the airplane," Daniela said in a sweet voice, as Alice opened her mouth, delighted. Robert's heart tightened. How long had it been since he'd seen his daughter smile like that? Ever since Alice's mother had passed away in childbirth, he had buried himself in work, leaving the girl's upbringing to nannies and staff. "What is going on in here?" Robert's voice came out louder and harsher than he intended. Daniela shot up, dropping her fork on the floor. Her face went pale. "Mr. Miller, I wasn't expecting you home now," Daniela stammered, as Alice ran to hug her father, not understanding the tension in the air. "Daddy! Danny makes yummy food. She lets me help make the salad," Alice exclaimed, pulling on her father's hand. Robert looked at the simple table. A plate of homemade food, so different from the elaborate dishes his private chefs prepared. He noticed Daniela's hands, red from work, and then looked at his own, impeccable with his weekly manicure. "Where is Mrs. Carmen and Alice's nanny?" he asked. Trying to maintain his composure, "Mrs. Carmen had to leave to sort out a problem with her son at school, sir, and the nanny called in sick," Daniela explained, still nervous. "Alice was hungry, and I just wanted to help." At that moment, Vanessa Price, Robert's fiancée and the CFO of his company, walked into the kitchen. Her high heels clicked on the floor, and her look of contempt for Daniela did not go unnoticed. "Robert, darling, what are you doing home at this hour?" Vanessa asked, completely ignoring Alice, who was trying to show her a drawing she had made with Daniela. "The meeting was cancelled," Robert answered curtly, still processing the scene he had witnessed. Vanessa glanced at the table, at the plate of simple food, and then at Daniela with disdain. "Are you feeding Alice?" "That? You do know she has a special diet prepared by a nutritionist, don't you?" Daniela looked down. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know. Alice said she was hungry and that she liked beans." Robert watched his daughter's face. She looked happy, healthy, and for the first time in a long time, he noticed how her eyes sparkled. Something inside him began to crack, like a wall of ice feeling the first rays of spring sun. "It's all right," Robert said, surprising everyone, including himself. "Alice seems happy." Vanessa shot Robert an incredulous look. "You can't be serious. This maid is giving your daughter just any food, and you find that acceptable?" Robert's thoughts were a whirlwind. On one hand, his fiancée was right. He paid expensive professionals to care for Alice. On the other, he had never seen his daughter so at ease, so natural as she was with Daniela. "Daddy, Danny taught me how to make a heart with tomatoes. Look," Alice pulled her father by the hand to the table, proudly showing him the small salad where tomato pieces formed an imperfect but affectionate heart. What Robert didn't know was that while he watched this simple scene, Vanessa was watching Daniela with a growing hatred. In her mind, she was already plotting how to get rid of this cleaner who, in just 2 weeks, had carved out more space in Alice's heart than she had in 2 years of being with Robert. "It's very pretty, Alice," Robert said, feeling strangely uncomfortable with his own discomfort. When was the last time he had truly paid attention to something his daughter had made? Daniela began to clear the plates, moving with quiet efficiency. "I apologize again, sir. It won't happen again." "No, no," Robert heard himself say, to his own surprise. "It's not a problem. Alice seems happy." Vanessa crossed her arms, her expensive perfume invading the simple kitchen atmosphere. "Robert, we need to talk, in private." Her tone left no room for argument. Robert nodded, but before leaving, he looked at Daniela. There was something about her, a quiet dignity, a gentle strength, that intrigued him. "Thank you for taking care of my daughter," he said, the words sounding foreign in his mouth, as if sincere thanks were a language he'd forgotten how to speak. In his office, Vanessa wasted no time. "You see what's happening, don't you? This woman is crossing every line. First, she feels entitled to feed Alice whatever she wants. What's next? Is she going to start having opinions on her education too?" Robert sat down in his Italian leather armchair, feeling the weight of the day on his shoulders. "Vanessa, she was just feeding my daughter because the nanny didn't show up. I don't see the harm in it." "You don't see the harm? Robert, you built an empire by being ruthless with people who don't follow the rules, and now you're going to let some cleaner decide what's best for your daughter." Vanessa's words hit Robert like well-aimed arrows. It was true. He had built his fortune by being inflexible, demanding perfection, controlling every detail. Why did that bother him now? "I'll call the agency tomorrow. We need a more reliable nanny for Alice," he said, trying to end the argument. Vanessa moved closer, her perfume now suffocating. "Darling, it's not just that. This Daniela, there's something about her I don't like. I received some information about her past that's troubling." Robert raised an eyebrow. "What kind of information?" "She was fired from her last job for theft. Small things. Nothing major, but still. Do you want someone like that near your daughter? Near your valuables?" The businessman felt a pang of doubt. Vanessa was effective at her job precisely because of her ability to investigate and find flaws, but something didn't feel right. "How did you find that out?" "I have my sources. I'm just worried about you and Alice, darling." Vanessa caressed Robert's face. "Promise me you'll fire her first thing tomorrow." Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Daniela was finishing cleaning up while Alice drew at the table. The girl had impressive concentration when she was dedicated to something. "Danny, are you leaving now?" Alice asked, without looking up from her paper. "Not yet, Princess. I have to finish cleaning the second floor." "Are you coming back tomorrow?" Daniela smiled, feeling a tightness in her chest. In just 2 weeks, she had grown attached to this child with an easy smile and a huge heart. "Of course I am." What Daniela didn't know was that at that very moment, Vanessa was in the office, planting seeds of doubt in Robert's mind. Seeds that could destroy not only her job, but the special connection that was blooming between her and Alice. Later that day, when Robert went to put Alice to bed, something he rarely did, the girl surprised him. "Daddy, Danny taught me how to fold napkins into flowers. Want to see?" Robert sat on the edge of the bed, watching his daughter. The doctors had said that children with Down syndrome often had difficulties with fine motor skills, but there was Alice, folding a napkin with a concentration and skill he had never noticed before. "Who taught you that, Alice?" "Danny did. She said her grandma taught her when she was little like me." Robert took the napkin flower, feeling something strange in his chest. It wasn't just that Alice had learned it. It was that Daniela had taken the time to teach his daughter something like that. Time that he himself never found. "You really like Danny, don't you?" Alice nodded enthusiastically. "She calls me Princess, and doesn't talk to me slowly like I don't understand things." Those simple words hit Robert like a punch to the gut. How many times had he himself spoken to Alice as if she couldn't comprehend? How many times had he delegated her upbringing to employees, diving into work so he wouldn't have to face the challenge of being a father to a special needs child? That night, Robert couldn't sleep. Vanessa's words about Daniela's alleged theft echoed in his mind, but so did Alice's laughter in the kitchen, the napkin flower, the natural way the cleaner treated his daughter. What he didn't know was that in a small apartment in Queens, Daniela couldn't sleep either. After putting her younger brother to bed, an 18-year-old who also had Down syndrome, whom she had been raising since their parents died, Daniela thought about Alice and the strange encounter with Robert Miller. "He's going to fire me tomorrow," she thought, staring at the peeling ceiling. "That woman, his fiancée, hates me. You can see it in her eyes." What Daniela didn't imagine was that the simple lunch had also planted a seed in Robert's hardened heart. A seed that, much like the doubts planted by Vanessa, would begin to grow in the coming days, leading them all to an inevitable confrontation. The next morning, the Miller townhouse awoke with a different energy. Robert, who would normally have already left for the office before sunrise, remained at home, discreetly observing the interactions between the staff and his daughter. Daniela arrived promptly at 7 a.m., as always. She wore a simple uniform, her hair tied in a neat bun. Robert watched her from his office door as she greeted the gardener and the cook with a genuine smile. There was nothing in her demeanor to suggest a dishonest person, as Vanessa had implied. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," Daniela said, surprised to see him still at home. Her eyes revealed a slight nervousness, as if she expected to be fired at any moment. "Good morning, Daniela. Can we talk for a moment?" Daniela's heart raced. This was it. After just 2 weeks, she would lose the job she so desperately needed to support herself and her brother. She followed Robert into the office, trying to keep her composure. "Please, have a seat," he said, gesturing to a leather chair in front of his imposing desk. Robert studied the young woman's face for a few seconds before continuing. "I want to talk about yesterday." Daniela took a deep breath. "Sir, I apologize again. I know I overstepped by feeding Alice." "It won't happen again." Robert leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Actually, I want to know more about how you handle Alice. I've noticed she responds well to you." The surprise on Daniela's face was evident. "Well, sir, Alice is a wonderful child, very smart and affectionate." "Most people don't see that," Robert commented, more to himself than to her. "They only see the syndrome, not the person." Daniela hesitated for a moment, and then decided to be honest. "Maybe it's because I understand a little more. My younger brother, Gabriel, also has Down syndrome. I've been taking care of him since our parents passed away 5 years ago." This information struck Robert like a revelation. Suddenly, the connection between Daniela and Alice made sense. It wasn't just kindness. It was understanding. It was experience. "You never mentioned that in your job interview." "I wasn't asked." "Sir," she replied simply. "And honestly, many employers see it as a problem. They think I'll miss a lot of work to take care of him." Robert nodded slowly. Under different circumstances, he would have probably thought the same. "My brother is in a day program. He's very independent, actually, more than most people imagine someone with Down syndrome can be." At that moment, Alice appeared at the office door, still in her pajamas, her face lighting up when she saw Daniela. "Danny, you came!" The girl ran to hug the cleaner, who returned the embrace naturally. "Of course I came, Princess. I promised, didn't I?" Robert watched the scene with a lump in his throat. When was the last time Alice had shown so much joy at seeing him? The painful truth was that his own daughter probably saw him more as a distant figure than a father. "Alice, sweetie, Daniela and I are talking. Why don't you go have your breakfast? I'll join you in a bit." To his surprise, Alice obeyed without protest, but not before giving Daniela another hug. When the girl left, Robert made a decision that surprised even himself. "Daniela, I'd like to propose something different." In addition to your cleaning duties, would you be willing to spend a few hours a day with Alice? As a sort of companion, not a formal nanny, but someone who can teach her things like that napkin flower. Daniela's eyes widened. Mr. Miller, I don't know what to say. Obviously, your salary would be adjusted, and you'd have the flexibility to care for your brother when needed. What Robert didn't say was that this decision went directly against Vanessa's advice. He still didn't know if the accusations about Daniela's past were true, but something in his gut, a gut that had built an empire, told him he could trust her. What neither of them noticed was Vanessa standing just outside the office, listening to every word, her beautiful face twisted into an expression of restrained fury. This insignificant cleaner was not only getting close to Alice, but now to Robert as well. This was unacceptable. As Daniela left the office, still stunned by the proposal, she passed Vanessa in the hallway. The look the executive gave her made her blood run cold. "Good morning, Mom," Daniela greeted politely. Vanessa just smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Enjoy it while it lasts," she whispered, low enough for only Daniela to hear. That afternoon, while Daniela taught Alice how to make small arrangements with flowers from the garden, Vanessa was in her office at Robert's company, making calls. Her plan was taking shape. "I need you to find something." "Anything? On this Daniela Garcia, criminal record, debts, problematic ex-boyfriends, anything I can use against her." On the other end of the line, her personal assistant confirmed the task. Vanessa hung up, a calculating smile on her perfect lips. She hadn't gotten where she was by being nice. Robert might be one of the most powerful men in New York, but she knew how to manipulate him. And she would not allow a simple cleaner to ruin her plans to become the next Mrs. Miller. What Vanessa didn't know was that her obsession with control and status was about to set off a series of events that would forever change the lives of everyone in that house. And that behind Daniela's fragile appearance was a strength she could never imagine. The strength of someone who had already faced too much loss to be easily intimidated. Meanwhile, Robert watched Alice and Daniela in the garden from a distance. Something was changing inside him, a strange and almost forgotten feeling. Was it guilt, regret, or maybe, just maybe, the rediscovery of something he had lost long ago, the ability to truly care about someone other than himself? The following days brought a new routine to the Miller townhouse. Daniela now divided her time between cleaning tasks and moments with Alice. The girl visibly blossomed under her care, learning small skills that no previous nanny had bothered to teach. Robert, going against his own habits, started coming home earlier. He told himself it was just to check on Alice's progress, but the truth was that he felt strangely drawn to the atmosphere Daniela created, a mix of simplicity, joy, and authenticity that had long been absent from his life. On one particularly sunny afternoon, Robert came home to find Alice and Daniela in the kitchen, baking cookies. His daughter was covered in flour, laughing as she tried to shape the dough. "Daddy, we're making cinnamon cookies. Danny said I can give them to everyone in the house." Robert smiled, a genuine smile that rarely appeared on his stern face. "Can I try one?" Alice looked at Daniela, who nodded encouragingly. "You can, but only when they're ready. Raw dough gives you a tummy ache." "Right, Danny?" "Exactly, Princess. Your dad will have to wait like everyone else." Robert raised his eyebrows, amused by the gentle authority Daniela wielded. He, who commanded hundreds of employees with an iron fist, was being told to wait by a cleaner. And the most surprising thing, he didn't mind one bit. "All right, I'll wait my turn," he said, loosening his tie and sitting at the kitchen table. "Can I at least watch?" Daniela seemed momentarily flustered by her boss's presence, but soon refocused on Alice. Robert watched how she guided the girl's hands with infinite patience, correcting gently when needed, celebrating every small success. "You're very good at this," he commented after Alice left to wash her hands. At what, exactly, Mr. Miller? At seeing what Alice can do, not what she can't. Daniela smiled. A smile that lit up her eyes in a way Robert found inexplicably captivating. My brother taught me that. People always underestimate those who are different, but different doesn't mean less capable. In that moment, something shifted between them. A silent understanding, a mutual respect that transcended the employer-employee relationship. What neither of them noticed was Vanessa standing at the kitchen door, watching the scene with calculating eyes. She saw Robert smile, the way he looked at Daniela, and her jealousy morphed into something more dangerous, determination. That night, as Robert worked in his home office, Vanessa entered with a file in her hand and a grave expression on her face. "We need to talk about your new favorite employee." Robert sighed, putting down his pen. "Vanessa, we've already discussed this. Daniela is doing an excellent job with Alice." "Oh, I have no doubt about that. She's very good at winning people's trust." Vanessa opened the file and slid some papers across the desk. "Especially vulnerable people." Robert picked up the documents, frowning as he read. They were police reports, incident records. "What is this?" "Your dear Daniela has an interesting history. 3 previous jobs, 3 accusations of theft, coincidence." Robert's blood ran cold. The documents looked legitimate. Police reports, statements. In one, an elderly woman accused Daniela of stealing family jewelry. "The charges were dropped," he observed, noting the dates. "Of course they were. She's clever. She returns the items when she's caught, begs for forgiveness, says she needs the money for her sick brother. It's always the same story." Robert felt a weight in his chest. Could it be possible? Could the same Daniela, who treated his daughter with such care, be capable of such dishonesty? Why didn't the victims press charges? Pity, probably, or shame for being deceived. Vanessa sat on the edge of the desk, leaning toward Robert. "Darling, I know you want to believe in her. She's good with Alice. I'll give her that. But we can't ignore the facts." Robert ran a hand over his face, feeling suddenly exhausted. "What do you suggest?" "Don't fire her. Not yet. But let's watch her. I'm sure she'll show her true colors soon enough." What Robert didn't know was that the documents Vanessa had presented had been carefully manipulated. The accusations were real, but not against Daniela. They were against someone with a similar name. Vanessa had paid well to have the documents altered, creating a narrative that served her purposes. In the following days, Robert found himself divided. On one hand, he continued to be impressed with Daniela's work and Alice's visible progress. On the other, he couldn't ignore the suspicions planted by Vanessa. He started noticing small things: an object out of place, a half-open drawer in his office. Were they coincidences or signs of something more sinister? Daniela, for her part, noticed the change in Robert's behavior, the suspicious glances, the subtle questions about where she had been, what she had done. She didn't understand why, but she felt something was wrong. One afternoon, while tidying Alice's room, Daniela found a small safe open on Robert's nightstand. Inside, she saw a pearl necklace that looked old and valuable. Without much thought, she closed the safe and continued her work. What she didn't know was that it was a trap. Vanessa had convinced Robert to leave the safe open with his late mother's necklace inside. A test to see if Daniela would succumb to temptation. That night at dinner, Vanessa dropped the bomb. "Robert, darling, have you seen your mother's necklace, the one you promised me?" Robert stiffened, glancing quickly at Daniela, who was serving dessert. "It was in the safe in my room." "How strange. I went to look for it today and couldn't find it." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniela felt all eyes turn to her, including Alice's, who looked confused by the sudden tension. I saw the safe today when I was cleaning the room," Daniela admitted, her voice trembling. "It was open. There was a necklace inside, but I left it there and closed the safe." Vanessa laughed, a cold, calculated sound. Convenient, isn't it? Admitting you saw the necklace, but denying you took it. I didn't take anything. Daniela's voice rose, indignant. I would never steal from anyone, let alone Mr. Miller. Robert watched Daniela's face, searching for any sign of a lie. Her eyes were welling up, her chin trembled slightly, but her gaze was direct, defiant. "Daddy, Danny doesn't steal," Alice intervened, her voice small but firm. "She taught me that taking other people's things is wrong." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Alice, dear, the adults are talking." "Maybe we should check the safe again," Robert suggested, standing up. "It could have been a mistake." As they went upstairs, Vanessa and Daniela, the air was thick with tension. Alice remained in the dining room, watching with frightened eyes. In the bedroom, Robert opened the safe. It was empty. "I knew it," Vanessa whispered triumphantly. "Robert, you need to call the police." Daniela turned pale. "No, I swear I didn't take anything. Someone is framing me." Robert looked at Daniela's desperate face, then at Vanessa's satisfied smile. Something wasn't right. He knew that look of Vanessa's, the same one she had when closing a particularly advantageous deal. "Let's check your things." "Then," he said, keeping his voice neutral, "if you didn't take it, you have nothing to fear." What none of them expected was that as they came downstairs, they would find Alice standing in the hall, holding the pearl necklace. "Alice!" Vanessa exclaimed, her face twisting in a mix of surprise and irritation. "Where did you find that?" The girl looked at the necklace in her small hands, then at the adults with a confused expression. "In your purse. Aunt Vanessa, I wanted to see your pretty lipstick, and I found this." The silence that followed was as thick as concrete. Robert looked at his fiancée, whose face was now visibly paling. "In her purse," he repeated slowly, as if he needed to process each word. "Alice, are you sure?" Alice nodded, her innocent eyes not comprehending the gravity of the situation. "It's in the big purse, the one that looks like crocodile. I just wanted to see the red lipstick." Robert turned to Vanessa, who was now regaining her composure, her brain working quickly to find a way out. "Robert, obviously the girl is confused. Or maybe—" She shot an accusatory look at Daniela. "Maybe someone told her to say that." Daniela, who until then had been watching in shock, took a step forward. "I would never do that. I would never use Alice like that." Robert held up a hand, silencing them both. He walked to the living room where Vanessa had left her crocodile leather purse, a gift he himself had given her for her last birthday. He opened it and meticulously went through the contents. At the bottom of the bag, hidden under a silk scarf, was a small envelope. Robert opened it and found a receipt from a luxury jeweler for the creation of an exact replica of his mother's necklace. His blood boiled. It wasn't just the attempt to frame Daniela that enraged him, but the cold, calculated manipulation, using his mother's memory, using his own daughter. "Vanessa," his voice came out dangerously controlled, "explain yourself." The executive adjusted her posture, going into the defensive mode Robert knew well from business meetings. "It was a test, Robert. We needed to be sure. You yourself agreed to check if she was trustworthy. I agreed to leave the safe open, not to stage a theft." Robert's voice rose, making Alice flinch. Daniela instinctively moved closer to the girl, placing a protective arm around her. "Let's talk in private," Vanessa said, giving a meaningful look toward Daniela and Alice. Robert nodded stiffly. "Daniela, please take Alice to her room." As Daniela led the girl away from the tension, Alice looked back. "Does Danny have to go away, Daddy?" The innocent question hit Robert like a punch. He looked at his daughter's worried face, then at Daniela, who maintained her dignity despite the humiliation she had just endured. "No, Alice, Danny isn't going anywhere." In the office, the argument was explosive. Vanessa tried to justify her actions as protecting Robert's family and assets. He, in turn, was furious with the manipulation. "You used my daughter, Vanessa. You used my mother's memory." I did what was necessary. This woman is playing you, Robert. Can't you see the way she looks at you? How she's worming her way into your life, into Alice's life. The only problem here is your sick jealousy. He shot back, his voice low but cutting. You can't stand to see Alice happy with someone who isn't you. No, wait, you don't even care about Alice's happiness. You never have. The words hit Vanessa like a slap. Her beautiful face twisted into an ugly expression. You're blind, Robert. This cleaner has you bewitched with her sob story about a sick brother and being kind to your retarded daughter. The silence that followed was glacial. Robert had never felt such hatred for anyone as he did in that moment. Get out of my house, he said, each word like a chip of ice. Now, Robert, you can't be serious. Everything we've built. Now! The shout echoed off the office walls. And don't you dare call my daughter that again, ever. After Vanessa left, not without threatening that he would regret this, Robert remained in his office for hours, drinking scotch and contemplating how he had been so blind, not just about Vanessa, but about his own life, his priorities. When he finally went up to see Alice, he found her sleeping peacefully. Next to her bed, sitting in a chair, was Daniela, also asleep, a storybook in her lap. She had stayed to make sure the girl was okay after the night's trauma. Robert watched them both for a long moment. There was a peace there that he rarely experienced in his hectic life, a simplicity that all his money couldn't buy. He gently touched Daniela's shoulder. She woke with a start. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. I just wanted to make sure Alice would be all right. Thank you, he said, the word coming with difficulty from a throat unaccustomed to gratitude. And I am sorry for what happened tonight. Vanessa, she is no longer part of our lives. Daniela nodded, showing no satisfaction at the news. Alice is an amazing child, sir. She deserves to be surrounded only by people who truly love her. Like you, Robert said. The phrase slipping out before he could stop it. A soft blush colored Daniela's cheeks. I care about her very much. I know. And she about you. Robert hesitated, then continued. I would like you to stay on here, Daniela. Not just as a cleaner or a companion for Alice, but maybe we can find a position that better reflects your importance to this family. Daniela's eyes widened slightly. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Robert, he corrected. I think after all this, you can call me Robert. That night, as she drove back to her small apartment where her brother was waiting, Daniela reflected on the turn her life had taken. From a cleaner nearly fired to what, exactly? She didn't know what Robert had in mind, but she felt that something fundamental had changed. What she didn't know was that Vanessa, humiliated and furious, would not accept defeat so easily. In her luxury apartment, the executive was planning her revenge. If she couldn't have Robert and his fortune, she would make sure Daniela couldn't either. You will regret this, Robert Miller, she muttered to the portrait of the couple she still kept on her desk. And you, Daniela Garcia, will wish you had never crossed my path. Meanwhile, in the Miller townhouse, Robert sat on the edge of Alice's bed, watching his daughter sleep. For the first time in years, he felt he was on the right path, that maybe, just maybe, he could learn to be the father Alice deserved, and maybe, too, he could learn to open his heart again, not just to his daughter, but to the woman who, in just a few weeks, had brought more light into that house than all the years of his material wealth. In the weeks that followed, the Miller townhouse breathed a different air. Alice's laughter echoed through the hallways more often, and even the longest-serving staff members noticed the change in their boss. Robert smiled more, worked fewer hours, and had dinner with his daughter almost every night, something unthinkable months ago. Daniela now officially held the position of house coordinator and special tutor for Alice. Robert had insisted on the new title and the substantial raise, despite her humble protests. I don't need that much money, Robert, Daniela had said, still uncomfortable with the intimacy of using his first name. It's not about what you need, but what you deserve, he had replied simply. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, Robert surprised everyone by announcing a picnic in the garden. Alice jumped for joy as she helped Daniela pack the basket. "Can we invite Gabriel too, Daddy? Please," pleaded Alice, who had met Daniela's brother on a recent visit and immediately formed a connection with the young man. Robert hesitated for only a second before agreeing. "Of course, Princess. Give him a call. Daniela." The picnic was a success. Gabriel, an 18-year-old with the same warm smile as his sister, entertained Alice with games and stories. Robert watched the three of them interact, feeling a strange mix of contentment and melancholy. This is what a family should be: relaxed, loving, present. Everything he hadn't provided for Alice in the years after his wife's death. "So, what are you thinking about?" Daniela asked, sitting beside him on the blanket spread across the lawn. Robert smiled faintly. "About how things change. 2 months ago, I barely knew my own daughter." Daniela followed his gaze to Alice, who was laughing as Gabriel taught her to make paper airplanes. "It's never too late to start over." "Thanks to you," Robert said, his hand finding hers on the blanket. The touch, though brief, sent an electric current up Daniela's arm. The moment was interrupted by Robert's cell phone. He frowned at the number. "I have to take this. It's the office." As Robert walked away to talk, Daniela watched his expression gradually shift from relaxed to tense. When he returned, his face was grim. Did something happen? Trouble at the company? It seems some investors are pulling out of a major project. He hesitated. "Vanessa is behind it." The name dropped like a stone between them. Since the night of the confrontation, Vanessa had vanished from their lives, but her shadow still occasionally loomed. "How do you know?" "She knows all my contacts, my business weaknesses, and she swore revenge." Robert ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Daniela now recognized as a sign of worry. "I need to go to the office early tomorrow, handle this personally." That night, after Alice and Gabriel had fallen asleep watching a movie in the living room, Robert invited Daniela for a glass of wine on the terrace. The night was clear and starry, with a gentle breeze that lightly stirred Daniela's loose hair. "Thank you for today," Robert said, raising his glass in a silent toast. "It was the best Sunday I've had in years." Daniela smiled. A smile that lit up her eyes in a way Robert found increasingly hard to ignore. Alice was radiant. "And Gabriel had a lot of fun, too. Your brother is a remarkable young man. You've done an incredible job raising him alone." "It wasn't easy," Daniela admitted, looking at the ruby liquid in her glass. "There were times I thought I couldn't make it. After our parents died in the car accident, social services wanted to put Gabriel in an institution. They said I was too young, that I couldn't handle it. But you did. I had to. He's my family. In my responsibility, I worked 3 different jobs, studied at night, did whatever it took." Robert watched her with growing admiration. He, who had built an empire from scratch, recognized strength and determination when he saw it. But there was something more to Daniela, a nobility of spirit, an ability to love unconditionally that both fascinated and intimidated him. "You are an extraordinary woman, Daniela Garcia," he said, his voice huskier than he intended. Daniela blushed, looking away. "I just did what anyone would do for someone they love." "No, not everyone would sacrifice so much." Robert put his glass on the table and moved closer to her. "I wasn't able to do that for Alice. I dove into work, into bitterness. I let strangers raise my daughter because it was easier than facing the pain of losing my wife." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Daniela instinctively touched Robert's arm. "You're changing that now. That's what matters." Their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. Robert leaned in slightly, his lips inches from hers. Daniela felt her heart race, torn between desire and prudence. The moment was broken by the sound of footsteps. Gabriel appeared at the terrace door, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Danny, I think we should go. I have class early tomorrow." Daniela quickly moved away from Robert. a deep blush coloring her cheeks. "Of course, Gabby, I'll get my things." As Daniela said her goodbyes, Robert called for a driver to take them home, insisting it was too late for public transportation. In the car, Gabriel quickly fell asleep on his sister's shoulder. "He really likes you," Daniela commented, noticing how Robert had treated her brother with respect and patience all day. "And I him. He reminds me of Alice, the same genuine joy, the same ability to see the best in people." When they arrived at the modest building where Daniela lived, Robert insisted on walking them to the door. The contrast between the Miller townhouse and the small two-bedroom apartment was stark, but Robert showed no discomfort or condescension. "Thank you for the day," Daniela said after Gabriel had gone inside, "and for the car." Robert hesitated, as if wanting to say something more. Instead, he leaned in and gently kissed her cheek. "See you tomorrow." That night, Daniela took a long time to fall asleep, replaying the day's events, the near kiss on the terrace, the touch of Robert's lips on her cheek. She was entering dangerous territory, she knew. Falling for her boss was the cliché she had always sworn to avoid. What she didn't know was that at that very moment, Vanessa was in her luxury apartment, receiving information from a private investigator she had hired to follow Daniela. "So, she has a brother with Down syndrome," Vanessa murmured, examining the photos from the picnic. "Interesting." The investigator, a man with a worn-out look and flexible morals, handed over another envelope. "There's more. The kid attends a special school downtown. He's on scholarship. But even so, the expenses are high. The girl is always tight on money." A cruel smile formed on Vanessa's perfect lips. "Vulnerabilities. Exactly what I needed." She dismissed the investigator and poured herself a glass of champagne, toasting her own reflection in the mirror. "You thought you had won, didn't you, Daniela? That you had stolen my place. Let's see how long your integrity lasts when your dear little brother is on the line." In the Miller townhouse, Robert was also awake, reviewing documents about the company crisis, while his thoughts kept returning to Daniela. He knew he was falling in love, something he swore would never happen again after his wife's death. The idea both terrified and liberated him. What none of them could predict was that Vanessa's actions in the coming days would test not only their nascent relationship, but the very safety of everyone they loved. The next morning, Robert left early for the office, determined to contain the damage caused by Vanessa. The situation was worse than he had imagined. 3 key investors had pulled out of the project that was supposed to be the company's flagship for the next year, citing concerns about leadership as the reason. "She's spreading rumors about me," Robert concluded after a tense meeting with his executive team, "questioning my stability, my recent decisions." His CFO, a man who had worked with him for over a decade, hesitated before speaking. "Robert, it's not just rumors. Vanessa has evidence." "Evidence of what?" The man slid a file across the table. Inside, Robert found photos of himself with Daniela, in the garden, in the car, at the door of her apartment. The images were innocent, but presented out of context. They painted a picture of a man distracted by a new romance, neglecting his business. "This is ridiculous," Robert protested. "My personal life doesn't affect my ability to lead this company." The investors disagree, especially since... The CFO looked extremely uncomfortable. "Because Miss Garcia was your housekeeper, there are concerns about impropriety." Robert felt his blood boil. Vanessa was using class prejudice to attack him, and ran worse, to attack Daniela. "Schedule a press conference," he ordered. "I'm going to set the record straight myself." Meanwhile, at the Miller townhouse, Daniela was helping Alice with her lessons when she received a call that made her blood run cold. "Miss Garcia, this is the New Horizons School. There's been a problem with your brother's scholarship." Daniela moved away so Alice wouldn't hear the conversation. "What kind of problem?" "The paperwork is all in order. I renewed it last month. We received a notification that the scholarship is being cancelled." Apparently, there was a re-evaluation of your financial situation. That's impossible. My situation hasn't changed. Daniela felt panic rising. Who authorized this re-evaluation? It was a major donor to the school, a Mrs. Vanessa Price. The name hit Daniela like a punch. Vanessa, of course it was her. There must be some mistake. Gabriel needs this scholarship. He's in his final year. I'm sorry, Miss Garcia. Unless you can pay the full tuition, your brother will have to leave the school at the end of the month. Daniela hung up, feeling sick. The full tuition for the specialized school was almost her entire salary, even with the raise Robert had given her. And without the school, Gabriel would lose not only his education, but essential therapies and the socialization that helped him so much. Are you okay, Danny? Alice's voice brought her back to reality. Daniela forced a smile. Everything's great, princess. Let's finish this math lesson. Throughout the day, Daniela struggled to maintain her composure while her mind worked frantically for solutions. Could she get a loan? Look for another school? Talk to Robert? The last option made her hesitate. Robert already had enough problems with Vanessa. Besides, asking for financial help now, when their relationship was evolving into something more personal, felt wrong, as if it confirmed the accusations that she was after his money. Late in the afternoon, when Robert returned, Daniela could tell immediately that something was wrong. He looked exhausted, tense. Tough day, she asked, as she served the tea he had requested. Robert sighed heavily. Vanessa is determined to destroy me, professionally and personally. Daniela sat across from him, hesitant. What happened? She's spreading rumors, driving away investors. He paused. And she's using us as ammunition. Us? She has pictures of us together. She's implying that I'm neglecting the company because of an affair with a maid. The words hit Daniela like a slap. Maid. As much as she tried to forget the social gap between them, the outside world would always remind her. I see, she said, her voice suddenly formal. That must be damaging to your reputation. Robert immediately realized his mistake. Daniela, that's not what I meant. I don't care what they think. I'm furious with Vanessa for trying to use prejudice to hurt us. It's not just prejudice, Robert. It's reality. Daniela stood up, unable to look him in the eye. I was your cleaner. Now I'm a household employee, and you're one of the richest men in the country. So what? That doesn't define who we are. To the world, it does. Daniela took a deep breath, making a painful decision. Maybe it's best if I step away for a while, until things with your company calm down. Robert stood up abruptly. No, I'm not letting Vanessa win like this. This isn't about winning or losing, Robert. It's about what's best for everyone. For you, for your company, for Alice. The mention of Alice made Robert hesitate. His daughter had grown deeply attached to Daniela. A separation now would affect her tremendously. And what about Gabriel? He asked softly. You mentioned he's in his last year of school. Wouldn't a move now be disruptive? Daniela felt tears threatening to fall. Gabriel. How would she explain to him that he would lose everything because of her? I'll figure something out, she said, her voice trembling. Robert studied her for a moment, sensing there was something more. Daniela, what's going on? You're not telling me something. Before she could answer, Robert's phone rang. He answered with irritation, but his face soon changed to concern. I'm on my way. He hung up, looking gravely at Daniela. I have to go to the office. There's been a leak of confidential information. Vanessa again. Daniela nodded, secretly relieved at the postponement of their conversation. Go. I'll stay with Alice. After Robert left, Daniela sat alone in the kitchen, finally allowing herself to cry. She was trapped. If she stayed, she would damage Robert and his company. If she left, Alice would suffer. And in any scenario, Gabriel would pay the price. What she didn't know was that at that very moment, Vanessa was taking the next step in her plan. In her luxury apartment, she was receiving an unexpected visitor, Gabriel, Daniela's brother. "And thank you for seeing me, ma'am," the young man said politely, sitting uncomfortably on the designer sofa. Vanessa smiled, a smile that didn't reach her calculating eyes. "The pleasure is mine, Gabriel. Your sister speaks very highly of you. Danny said you want to offer me an internship at your company." "Exactly. A special program for talented young men like yourself." Vanessa poured him a soda. "But first, we need to talk about your sister and Mr. Miller?" Gabriel frowned, confused. "What about them? Did you know they're romantically involved, that your sister is using you to get money from him?" The young man's eyes widened, then he scowled. "Danny wouldn't do that. She's good." Vanessa sighed theatrically. "We all think we know the people we love, Gabriel, but sometimes they surprise us." She slid the same photos she had shown the investors across the coffee table. "And see for yourself." Gabriel looked at the images, his face a mixture of confusion and discomfort. "I don't get it. They're just talking. For now, but soon your sister will convince Mr. Miller to give her money. Money that should go to his daughter, Alice. You've met Alice, haven't you? The special girl, like you." Gabriel nodded slowly. "Alice is my friend. And do you think it's fair for her to lose her inheritance because of your sister?" The young man looked increasingly troubled. "No, but Danny wouldn't do that." Vanessa leaned forward, her voice soft but venomous. "There's a way to protect Alice and help your sister at the same time, Gabriel. Do you want to know how?" At the Miller townhouse, Daniela had finally made a decision. She called a friend who worked at another school, less prestigious, but one that might accept Gabriel. Then she began to draft her resignation letter. It hurt like tearing off a piece of herself, but she saw no other way out. What she didn't know was that as she wrote those painful words of farewell, her brother was being manipulated into becoming a key piece in Vanessa's revenge plot, a plot that threatened to destroy not only the nascent relationship between Daniela and Robert, but the very safety of Alice. Night fell over New York like a heavy shroud. Robert was driving home, exhausted after hours of trying to contain the information leak. Vanessa had been meticulous. Internal company documents were now circulating among competitors and journalists, all strategically edited to suggest mismanagement and questionable decisions. His phone rang. It was Daniela. "Robert." Her voice sounded strange, strained. "You need to come home now." "I'm on my way." "What happened?" "It's Gabriel. He's missing. He left his program early and didn't come home. He's not answering his phone." Robert felt a tightness in his chest. "Have you called his friends? Hospitals?" "I've tried everything." Daniela's voice broke. "And there's more. I got a text from Vanessa." Robert gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "What did she say?" "For me to meet her at her office. Alone. She said Gabriel is with her." "I'm heading there now. Don't do anything until I get there." When Robert arrived at the townhouse, he found Daniela pale, pacing in the living room. Alice was asleep, oblivious to the unfolding drama. "Show me the text," he said. Daniela handed him the phone. The message was clear and threatening. "Your brother is with me. Come to my office at 10 p.m. alone, or everyone will find out what you really are." "What does she mean by that?" Robert asked. Daniela looked away. "I don't know." "Daniela, look at me." Robert held her shoulders gently. "Whatever Vanessa thinks she has on you, we can face it together, but I need to know the truth." Tears streamed down Daniela's face. "I was going to tell you, I swear I was." "Tell me what?" "About my past. About what happened at my last job." Robert felt a chill run down his spine. Could Vanessa have been right about Daniela all along? "I worked for a wealthy family in Greenwich," Daniela began, her voice trembling. "The lady of the house, Mrs. Helena, was elderly and had memory problems. One day, she accused me of stealing a valuable brooch." Robert listened in silence, his face unreadable. "I didn't steal anything. I never would. But no one believed me, except her grandson, Lucas. He found the brooch at the bottom of a drawer days later. Mrs. Helena had forgotten where she put it, and then Lucas convinced his grandmother to drop the accusation, but the damage was done. I was fired, and the rumor spread. I had a hard time finding a job after that. Daniela wiped her tears. When I got the interview here, I didn't mention the incident. I knew I wouldn't get hired if they knew. Robert processed the information slowly. Why didn't you tell me later? When we got closer, I was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't believe me, like everyone else. Afraid of losing not just my job, but, she hesitated, losing you and Alice. Robert closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. Oh, we're going to get your brother. But Vanessa said for me to go alone. And you think she's just going to release Gabriel and leave you in peace. This is just the beginning, Daniela. She won't stop. In the car on the way to Vanessa's office, Robert made several calls to his lawyer, his head of security, the police. Daniela watched, impressed by his calm efficiency even in a crisis. Do you really believe me? She asked softly. About the brooch. Robert glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. I do. And even if I had any doubts, Vanessa just kidnapped your brother. That says everything about who the real villain is in this story. The corporate building was nearly empty at this hour, just a few security guards and night shift employees. Robert and Daniela went straight up to the penthouse, where Vanessa's office was located. She was waiting for them. Sitting elegantly behind her glass desk, Gabriel was on a sofa in the corner, looking confused and scared. Gabi! Daniela ran to her brother, hugging him tightly. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? I'm fine, Danny, he mumbled. She said it was a surprise for you, that we were going to help you. Vanessa smiled coldly. How touching. A family reunion. Her gaze shifted to Robert. You weren't supposed to be here. This is between me and the thief you've welcomed into your home. Enough, Vanessa. Robert's voice was controlled, but laced with fury. It's over. The police are on their way. Kidnapping is a crime, even for someone like you. Vanessa laughed, a humorless sound. Kidnapping, Gabriel came voluntarily. Didn't you, dear? The young man nodded hesitantly. She said she was going to give me a job. To help you, Danny. Daniela's heart ached. Her brother, with his innocent trust, had been the perfect weapon in Vanessa's hands. And as for you, Robert, Vanessa continued, standing up, do you really think the police will believe you two over me? I have influence, connections, and I have this. She slid a file across the desk. Robert opened it and found documents, the same ones Vanessa had shown the investors, but now with additions. Manipulated photos of Daniela seemingly stealing items from the Miller townhouse. And crude fakes, Robert said, tossing the file back. No one will believe this. They don't have to believe it. They just have to doubt. Doubt enough to investigate, to put a stain on your immaculate reputation. Vanessa smiled. How long until your investors lose faith completely? How long until the press starts speculating about the rich businessman who was duped by an ambitious little maid? Robert took a step forward, his patience gone. What do you want? Vanessa? Money? Power? What will make you stop this madness? Vanessa's smile vanished, replaced by an expression of pure hatred. I want you to suffer like I suffered. I want you to lose everything like I did. I want her. She pointed at Daniela with contempt. This nobody, to go back to the gutter where she belongs. You are not a good person. Gabriel's voice surprised everyone. He stood up, trembling slightly but determined. You lied to me. You said bad things about my sister. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Shut up, you retard. The adults are talking. The insult hit Daniela like a physical blow. She lunged forward, rage replacing fear. Don't you ever talk to my brother like that again. Robert stepped between the two women. It's over, Vanessa. You've crossed every possible line, insulting Gabriel, manipulating him, threatening Daniela, sabotaging my company. Why? Because you can't stand to see other people happy. Happy? Vanessa laughed bitterly. You think you deserve to be happy? After you discarded me like trash? After replacing years of partnership with a fling with the help? Our relationship was over long before Daniela showed up, and you know it. We were using each other. I used you for your business acumen. You used me for my money and status. There was no love, Vanessa. There never was. The words struck Vanessa like a slap. For a moment, her mask of coldness cracked, revealing the hurt and rejection behind her revenge. At that instant, the office door opened. 2 police officers entered, followed by Robert's lawyer. Miss Price, we have a few questions for you regarding Gabriel Garcia. As Vanessa was questioned, Robert led Daniela and Gabriel out of the office. In the hallway, Daniela finally broke down, the stress of the past hours taking its toll. It's okay now, Robert murmured, holding her. It's over. I'm sorry, Danny, Gabriel said, tears in his eyes. I didn't know she was mean. Daniela hugged her brother. It wasn't your fault, Gabby. You did nothing wrong. Later, as Gabriel slept in the back seat of Robert's car, Daniela finally asked, what will happen to her? Vanessa? Probably nothing criminal. She's too smart to leave hard evidence, but professionally, she's finished. I've already called all our mutual contacts. No one will hire her after this. And what about us? The question came out almost as a whisper. Robert took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. That's up to you. There's still a lot we need to talk about, a lot to figure out. But if you're willing to face whatever comes next, the rumors, the prejudice, I want to try. Daniela looked at her sleeping brother, then at the man beside her, the man who had risked everything for her tonight. I want to try, she said simply. When they arrived at the townhouse, they found Alice awake, waiting anxiously at the door with the housekeeper. Upon seeing Daniela, the girl ran into her arms. You came back. I had a bad dream that you went away and never came back. Daniela hugged the child, tears in her eyes. But I'm not going anywhere, Princess. I promise. That night, with Gabriel sleeping in the guest room and Alice finally settled after the turmoil, Robert and Daniela sat on the terrace under the stars, just as they had days before. I still can't believe all of this happened because of a plate of rice and beans, Daniela said, shaking her head. Robert smiled, taking her hand. It wasn't just lunch. It was the moment I started to see again, to see my daughter, to see what really matters. And what really matters, Robert Miller? He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the stars above. Family, love, honesty, all the things I had forgotten until you reminded me. This time, when he leaned in to kiss her, there were no interruptions. Under the starry New York sky, a millionaire and a cleaner sealed a new beginning, not just for themselves, but for the 2 special young people who depended on them and who had, each in their own way, taught them the true meaning of wealth. 3 months later, the Miller townhouse was unrecognizable. Not in its physical structure, the Italian marble and works of art still adorned the spaces, but in the energy that pulsed through its halls. Where an oppressive silence once reigned, now there were echoes of laughter, conversation, and occasionally even music. Alice had blossomed in ways that surprised even her therapists. Her motor coordination improved, her vocabulary expanded, and her confidence grew exponentially. The girl who once hid behind nannies now initiated games and expressed her opinions with surprising clarity. She's a different child, the private tutor commented during a meeting with Robert and Daniela. The progress in the last few months surpasses everything we achieved in the previous years. Robert discreetly squeezed Daniela's hand under the table. They both knew who to credit for this transformation. Gabriel had also found his place in this new family dynamic. After the incident with Vanessa, Robert insisted he transfer to an even better school, personally covering all the costs. More than that, he created an internship program at his company specifically for young adults with Down syndrome. With Gabriel as the first participant. "It's not charity," Robert had explained when Daniela tried to protest. "It's an investment. People like Gabriel and Alice have unique perspectives that can benefit any organization. I'm just recognizing it before my competitors do." As for Vanessa, as Robert had predicted, she faced no criminal charges. However, her professional reputation was destroyed. No reputable firm in New York would dare hire her after the scandal. Rumor had it she had moved abroad, trying to rebuild her career far from the eyes of the Manhattan society she so prized. One Sunday morning, as the family had breakfast in the garden, a new ritual they all adored, Robert surprised them with an announcement. "I have a proposal for you all," he said, pouring more coffee. "What do you think about spending a weekend at the beach? I have a house in the Hamptons that I rarely use." Alice jumped with joy. "Can we swim in the ocean and build sand castles?" "Of course we can, Princess," Robert replied, smiling at his daughter's enthusiasm. Gabriel, who had become more articulate and confident in recent months, asked, "Can I bring my camera? I want to photograph the sunset over the ocean." "Excellent idea," Robert agreed. "Your photos are getting better and better." Daniela watched the interaction, her heart full. There were still moments when she wondered if this was all real, if she had truly found not just love, but a complete family, a place where both she and Gabriel were valued for who they were. "What are you thinking about?" Robert asked, noticing her silence. "About how life works in circles," she answered honestly. 4 months ago, I was desperate, juggling 3 jobs to keep Gabriel in his program. Now you've revolutionized our lives," Robert completed, taking her hand across the table, not caring about the curious glances of the staff passing by. "And you still have the audacity to be surprised by it." Daniela blushed, still uncomfortable with compliments. Despite everything they had been through together, there were still moments when the social differences between them weighed on her mind. Not because of Robert, he never made her feel inferior, but because of the outside world that occasionally pierced their happy bubble. Like the previous week, when they attended a company charity event and Daniela overheard malicious whispers, "That's the ex-cleaner. They say she got pregnant on purpose. She's after his money, obviously." Robert noticed her distant expression. "Hey, you're back at that party, aren't you?" Daniela nodded slightly. Robert sighed, pulling his chair closer. "Those people don't matter," he said, low enough for only her to hear. "Their opinions don't define who we are. I know, it's just hard sometimes." "Then let's give them something really substantial to gossip about." Robert smiled mysteriously. "What do you mean?" Before Robert could answer, Alice interrupted by accidentally spilling her orange juice. The moment passed, but Daniela noticed something different in Robert's eyes for the rest of the day, a mix of nervousness and anticipation she rarely saw in the ever-confident businessman. On Friday, they left for the Hamptons in Robert's spacious SUV. Alice and Gabriel sang excitedly in the back seat, while Daniela admired the landscape gradually changing from the grey metropolis to the green of the countryside, and finally to the blue of the ocean. The beach house turned out to be a stunning mansion with a panoramic view of the sea. Daniela shook her head, smiling at the warped concept of a simple house. Robert still held. The weekend passed like a dream. Walks on the beach, swimming in the ocean, board games at night. Gabriel amazed everyone with his talent for photography, capturing moments of beauty the others hadn't even noticed. The perfect reflection of clouds on the water. A small crab emerging from the sand. Alice's carefree smile as she built her castle. On Saturday night, Robert suggested a special dinner on the deck, overlooking the sea. He hired a local chef to prepare fresh seafood and asked Gabriel to help Alice get dressed up like for an important party. When Daniela emerged from her room, wearing a simple but elegant dress Robert had insisted she buy for the occasion, she found the deck transformed. Fairy lights hung from the ceiling, candles floated in small bowls of water, and white flowers adorned every surface. "What is all this?" she asked, genuinely surprised. Robert, elegant in a white linen shirt and light trousers, smiled nervously. A special dinner to celebrate. Celebrate what? New beginnings. Second chances. He hesitated. Family. The dinner was delicious. The conversation flowed easily, and even Alice behaved impeccably. Proud to be part of a grown-up party, as she called it, Gabriel surprised them all with an impromptu toast to my sister Danny, who always took care of me, and to Robert, who takes care of all of us now. After dessert, Robert suggested a walk on the beach. The night was perfect, a starry sky, a gentle breeze, the rhythmic sound of waves crashing on the sand. "Alice and Gabriel are watching us from the deck," Daniela commented. Noticing the two figures waving enthusiastically, Robert laughed. "They're excited. They know what's about to happen." "And what is about to happen?" Daniela asked, her heart inexplicably speeding up. Robert stopped, turning to face her. The moonlight reflected in his eyes, revealing a vulnerability he rarely showed. "Daniela Garcia," he began, his voice more shaky than Daniela had ever heard it. "When you walked into my house that day, sharing your simple lunch with Alice, something changed in me, something I thought was dead and buried since I lost her mother." Daniela felt tears forming in her eyes. "You taught me to see the beauty in simplicity, strength in kindness, and wealth in what truly matters." Robert took her hands. "Over the past few months, we've built something that no amount of money can buy, a real family, and I want to make it official." To Daniela's complete surprise, Robert knelt on one knee in the sand, pulling a small box from his pocket. "This isn't about status or money or what people will say," he continued. "It's about the four of us, you, me, Alice, and Gabriel. It's about building a life together, officially, as a family." He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a single pearl, surrounded by small diamonds. "Daniela Garcia, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Daniela was speechless, tears streaming freely down her face. From the deck, they could hear the excited cheers of Alice and Gabriel. "They already knew," she finally managed to ask. Robert smiled. "I asked for their blessing first. After all, this marriage is about all of us." Daniela looked at the man kneeling before her, not the powerful millionaire she had met months ago, but the loving father, her brother's friend, the man who had opened not just his house, but his heart to them. Yes," she answered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I will." Robert slipped the ring on her finger and stood up to kiss her. From the deck, Alice and Gabriel were applauding and whistling. "They're as happy as I am," Robert commented, holding her close. "We're a family now," Daniela said, still in disbelief. "Officially." "We always were," Robert replied. "The paper just confirms what we already knew in our hearts." As they walked back to the house, where Alice and Gabriel were waiting with hugs and more celebration, Daniela reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her here. From a simple cleaner sharing her lunch with a lonely child to the future wife of Robert Miller and mother to Alice, life truly worked in surprising ways. And sometimes, the greatest riches came disguised in the simplest forms, like a plate of rice and beans, shared with an open heart. So, what do you think of this story? Do you believe love can truly overcome such significant social barriers? Did Vanessa get what she deserved, or do you think Robert was too harsh with her? Tell me in the comments what you would have done in Daniela's place when you discovered Vanessa's trap.